love the idea of incorporating tools such as adaptogens, because they are herbs that really help your body to find the natural balance in itself, right? And so that it can actually create the right things. And so tonight I have invited Greg Halliday, the founder and president of Solle Naturals, for our Soul Connection session to talk about one such tool, which is my go-to for hormonal balance, and that is SolleExcell.
Thank you, Erica. And what I'm going to do is take it from a really good training by Dr. Allison Caldwell Andrews. She's the chief scientific advisor of Solle. She did her postdoc at Yale. She's a clinical psychologist and an herbalist and a formulator. And she turned Solle onto what I would say is one of the great pearls, and let's say this, lost pearls of this hemisphere. So this actually comes from the Western Hemisphere. And I say this because it's a key component of SolleExcell. In fact, it's actually three thises. We call it our TriMaca blend because it's three different kinds of maca. And SolleExcell is a very complex formula. It is 100% natural, and it's a combination of concentrated plant extracts. And we divide the formula into two parts. Half of it is about clearing things out and clarifying, and the other half is about essentially hormone balance as it connects into your nervous system. Three kinds of maca in this formula. That is very important. For years, it was just the yellow maca, the only maca you could find. This is what Dr. Allison discovered. Really, I say discovered, but brought to our attention. There are three different kinds, black, yellow, and red maca, because they all have many attributes in common, and they do exactly what Eric has been teaching us tonight. They're amazing balancers, not just of our glandular system, which is very complex, but also how it connects into our nervous system. So they all carry common attributes, but they also carry some uniquenesses, and we get much more, and we've seen a much greater nutritional vitality having three than we ever saw over all the years that I was familiar with the yellow maca prior to founding Solle Naturals. So what is this maca? Okay, it's a root. It kind of looks like a beet. It's a very large beet if you want to compare it to a beet, but it's not a beet. It grows in very harsh conditions in the Andes Mountains, in volcanic soil. Takes 7 or 8 or 9 months to grow, grows just below the glacial ice cap. So we're talking 9,000 to 14,500 feet. That's the elevation, extreme weather, freezing, high winds, intense sunlight. So an environment of extremes, but it happens to have a very high frost tolerance and is loaded with nutrients. It actually was used and has been written about in ancient records that have been preserved for really more than 3,000 years. So this is really interesting. Even before, if you think of Peru, you might think of the Incas, who were the civilization that Spain came and really kind of, as they wandered and pillaged and did lots of things in throughout South America, the Incas were one of the civilizations that were overcome, but had known about maca. And it's now been 2,000 years that maca itself has been domesticated and is farmed as well. Back in its original times, it was sent as tribute to the Incan capitals in Cusco. There's lots of evidence of this. Their troops ate it for vitality and fortitude. In fact, there's record in 1549 that 18,000 pounds of maca was the tribute sent to the Spanish. That was the only thing sent. It was so valued. Lots of records, and in fact, they preferred it to gold. A lot of the conquistadors through there, as they became familiar with this nutrient. Why was it so valued? Okay, well, we'll tell you why. You have to fast forward to 1979. And we all need to thank a woman by the name of Gloria Chacon. Gloria Chacon was a PhD who brought to light to the rest of the world this amazing maca, why it was important. And why did she do it? Because it was in danger of extinction. Only 70 acres were known to be cultivated in 1979 as we introduced Peru and England to modern medicine and all our advances. So what did she show? Why was this important? Well, she showed a lot because by 1991, the FAO, which is part of the United Nations, recommended the Peruvians return to eating maca and other native Andean foods because of their significant nutritional profile that was combating problems that were prevalent in these peoples as they had moved away from these diets. Why is maca like this? Well, 10% of its proteins, about 10% is fibers. Good fats make up 2 or 3%. There are interesting carbs that make up about 60%, and the proteins themselves are a wide variety of amino acids, 18 amino acids to be exact. Why is this such a big deal? Well, because maca also has all sorts of other components like potassium, very high levels of potassium, magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, iodine, silica, and zinc. These are some of the highlights of minerals that it contains. And beyond all of this, at least 60 additional important phytonutrients. And these phytonutrients are part of the story that I want to tell you about, just to kind of explain why Excel and this maca blend that is the core of the gland balancing, stress and hormone balancing components in Excel. Why is it so successful? Because this huge wide array is adaptogenic. In other words, it boosts performance on either side of imbalance, overactive and hyper-stressed, or underactive and depleted and almost non-functioning. It actually works on both sides. So what it ends up doing is balancing hormones. Rather than us trying to use hormone therapy to balance ourselves and figure out the amount that's lacking of one or the other, like Erica mentioned of progesterone, the rich food in macas provides all the nutrients needed and the alkaloids needed, but then what they do, and here's what Dr. Chacon, Gloria Chacon, don't forget that name if you hadn't heard of it. Here's what she showed. She showed that sexual drive and fertility in both men and women normalizes and equalizes. Energy and vigor, and a daily feeling of that normalizes and equalizes. Depression and anxiety go down. Bone mineral density increases. It really, in short, all the important body systems work toward balance. They move toward balance when maca is in the diet. Hence, its immense value for centuries, and it's used as tribute, et cetera, and its preference even to gold. Why does it do this? Well, what Dr. Chacon showed in her research, this is back in the 1960s, is that some of these alkaloids, some of the botanical nutrients in maca actually nourish and affect both the hypothalamus and the pituitary glands. And the hypothalamus, as we were able to learn from other study, is a regulator between the nervous system and your endocrine system, and affects the pituitary, therefore normalizing and equalizing levels. So from the thyroid to adrenals, to sex hormones, to many other hormones, your sleep, your pineal, they find all of these, and we sort of chuckle when we see the studies. Thanks to Dr. Chacon, the scientists will usually end with the phrase, "It isn't clear why, but after the use of maca, this regulated, this normalized, this increased." And it's not clear why, but they know it has something, and we know it has something to do with these very alkaloids. So I know that's a little walk down history. Maca is a pretty incredible, very nutritious. It is the core, and I will tell you, it's a large percentage of the mass of this wonderful powder that you're drinking. If you drink the yellow drink, the SolleExcell, getting inside the story of why it's so good is this special blend of macas, and I'll tell you our secret. We use 3 concentrated extracts along with the raw yellow powder. So actually are 4 different sources of the macas in our own balance that we put together at Solle. And now we're here, 8 years into it, with lots of wonderful, wonderful stories of exactly what Erica's been teaching. So I hope that's been useful to you. But maca is, to me, it's a pretty fascinating story, and there is a rich heritage. It's a mystery why it's so unknown here, really, in the United States. But one of the missions of Solle is that it not be, that every household has this information. This is pretty useful at any age. Teenage, people wonder, can I give it to my kids, teenagers? Yes and yes. This is not giving them hormones. This doesn't bump it up more. This actually equalizes and balances. So it really is appropriate for any age, really any and every age. So anyway, Erica, I think that might have been like 9 minutes. So back to you.
It was so good. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That was so good and so much good information that I'm just super excited to share with a lot more people now. And I will tell you, Excel is one of my favorites. And sometimes I'll be way too many in for the day. Well, I don't know if there's too many, but like I've had more than like a couple for the day. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have another one. But then, it's kind of funny because I'm always like, but it's okay. My body will know what to do with this and it will just balance out. So it's fine. And, but I do love it. And I do notice that sometimes my body will crave it. And I'm like, oh, my body really wants an Excel.
I'm glad you listened to your body, Erica, because to me, that's what it is. When it wants it, we give it. Other times it doesn't want it. Okay. You don't have to give it.
Yeah. And I definitely feel that way. And like I said, it is definitely one of my favorites. I will tell everybody my absolute favorite is actually Vital. And that wasn't true when I first started.